more conservatives demonstrating
scandal,
again that they know nothing about medicine.
There's no evidence of a scandal.
No, you don't need to explain anything. Well, I'm giving.
President Biden has advanced aggressive cancer that's metastasized to his bones, simply because on a human level, whether it was him or Donald Trump or anybody else, I just think if we've reached a point where the reaction to an elderly man potentially dying is treated with great glee, well, then they've served 50 years as a politician. I just think, I think it crosses the line. However,
Piers, I didn't see a lot of glee in the reaction. I'm not even just flacking for the GOP. From the established mainstream guys, I saw a lot of concern, pray for Joe
I'm not
Biden
talking about mainstream. I'm
from
talking about general, like, people on social media. And I think it's indicative of where social media has gone. It's become, as we all know, because we've all got big followings, it's become a sewer and a cesspit. Right. And I just think it's actually, interestingly to what you just said, it's incumbent on people who are in the more mainstream, if you like, and I would include all of us here in a way. It's important for us, I think, to try and moderate that kind of stuff as best we can by leading by example. However, it's an important example. However, I'm just not buying this sequence of events. When I saw Ezekiel Emanuel on MSNBC talking about the fact that from his position as a very, very eminent oncologist, it just defies credibility. They've just discovered this about Joe Biden, that in his estimation, they probably knew about this or should have known or must have known for maybe 4 or 5 years, even before he got elected before. Just to me, none of this adds up because I've had PSA tests. I mean, I'm 60, right? I've had them in my 50s. Most men do. And if you're the president of the United States, you're getting test after test after test after test. So what do we think we're dealing with here?
I think J.D. Vance exemplified the right reaction here, which is you say, look, we pray for the guy who has cancer, and we're all headed for the dust at some point. So let's not be too cruel about it. But also, don't allow our sympathy to distract us from the legitimate political problem that we all have a right to discuss, which is we were lied to. We were lied to by the White House doctor. That White House doctor should probably lose his medical license. Either way, if you're telling me he somehow didn't catch it until moments ago, he's a terrible doctor or he's a liar. Either way, he needs to face serious consequences. The White House staff lied. The media lied. The Jake Tappers of the world lied. And that's a very serious problem because we already had very little trust in our established institutions after COVID. Now you've got the public health officials, the White House doctor, and you've got the White House staff yet again lying to us. One big irony in all of this, at a really low-end political level, the Democrats, when Biden's decline became clear, they decided to throw him out and replace him with Kamala Harris. And just knowing how life expectancy and metastatic cancer progresses, the Democrats would have had a much better chance getting Kamala Harris into the White House had they not instituted a coup d'etat on Joe Biden. Had they just been, I don't know, a little bit more straightforward about everything, they might have gotten what they wanted, but their deceit did them in.
Yeah, well, Jahat, I mean, whichever way you look at this, it just stinks, the sequence of events, doesn't it? I mean, does anybody believe that they have suddenly discovered about a recent president of the United States, that he's got aggressive cancer in this manner? I mean, the White House said today, has come out and said the last time not the White House, but Biden's people have come out and said the last time he had a PSA test was 2014. For fear it would be raised and raise concerns. I just don't believe that. Why would a man in his 70s not have another PSA test for 10, 11 years?
So I know we love conspiracy theories on this show, but let me just say first and foremost, as a father of a stage 4 cancer survivor, my daughter had a full liver transplant. When I left my daughter, she was perfectly healthy, 2 years old, 6 years ago, and then she had some bumps. My wife took her to the emergency room, and then they found out that she had stage 4 cancer. That's how it happens. So for anyone who is suffering from cancer, anyone who has a lost one, who died from cancer, sometimes it creeps up. That's number one for people to know, and hopefully people will know more about cancer as this Trump administration has cut 31% of cancer research in the first 100 days. Just want people to know that. Hopefully no one has to go through this. We went through it. Joe Biden right now has stage 4 cancer that has metastasized to the bone.
Sorry, with respect, Jahat, let me stop you. You're distracting. You're very good at distracting. We're not a show that
no, not at all. I'm trying to inform your audience.
I'm not a show that loves conspiracy theories. I love talking about the reality behind conspiracy theories. Often conspiracy theories, as we've discovered in the last few years, turn out to be correct. So I'm prepared to give everything a fair hearing.
That is not true.
Well, they sometimes they do, right? Some conspiracy theories turn out to be true. And then the people who call them conspiracy theories sound like idiots. I don't like promoting wild, nonsensical conspiracy theories. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to have expected a president of the United States in his 70s to have had a basic test that all men over the age of about 55 are encouraged to have on a regular basis. I don't believe them. And I think that is
All right, so
and if it turns out to be that
you might agree with me on this.
Go on.
You actually might agree with me on this. So here, let me just finish. Joe Biden is a very old man. Breaking news. He's 82 years old. I agree with you that Joe Biden should not have run or even announced that he was run for president, right? He was supposed to be a one-term president. I believe Joe Biden did immense damage to the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris by announcing at a very late stage that he wouldn't run, and he was pressured not to run. I think he made a huge mistake. He's 82 years old. Now, I'm all for fair and balance. And I don't know, I'm going to take my Republican counterparts, my MAGA counterparts out there at their word right now. Let's have fair and balance. I'm all here. Let's release all the public records. Let's release all the health records of President Biden, who is not president. Also, let's also focus on the man who's currently president, Donald Trump. He's the oldest person to ever be elected president. He's about to turn 79 years old. I want the health records of Joe Biden. I also want the health records of Donald Trump. Specifically, I want the records of his failed assassination attempt. You know, the bullet that grazed the ear. That is very traumatic for anybody, especially a 78-year-old man. Release all the health records. Number one. Number two.
Wow, you're sounding
Donald
like
Trump,
a man. Sorry, Vijaya. You are sounding
50-50.
With respect,
Let's do 50-50.
With respect, you are beginning to sound like a mad conspiracy theorist.
We do not have the health records. Those health records were not made public. I agree with shot in the ear. I was on your show. He was shot. He survived. Release the public health records of Donald Trump. Release the public health records of Joe Biden. I want to remind everyone, the oldest man to be elected is president right now, Donald Trump. Who did I say was cover up? I'm saying, let's be honest. I'm taking you at your word.
I was trying to establish. Are you saying that you are agreeing with your MAGA counterparts that there was a cover up on Joe Biden's ill health?
People do not trust the establishment. People do not trust the Democratic establishment. People do not trust the Republican establishment. I want Americans to be informed. I agree with you. Joe Biden is a very old man. He's 82 years old. I agree with you. He should not run again. I agree with you that the Democratic establishment probably hit his decline. We saw it in real time. But what I'm also seeing right now is unfair and unbalanced coverage, because President Biden ain't president. Donald Trump is president. 78 years old, about to turn 79, has never been on a bike, talks about groceries, like he invented the word, he's brought it back.
Well,
has
you're steaming off.
I'm sorry.
Well, you're going off on one of your you're very good at distracting. You're very good at distracting, but let me bring in.
Donald Trump has fallen asleep 3 times publicly in the past 3 weeks. He's 79 years old.
Donald Trump has the energy, as everybody knows, whether you love him or hate him, he's got the energy of a 30-year-old, right? So what? Let's just not go down.
Tell him to ride a bike.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
Tell him to ride a bike.
Joe Biden was basically
Biden rode a bike
zombie.
last week. Tell him to ride a bike.
All right, let me bring in Dave Rubin.
Tell Donald Trump to ride a bike.
All right, which I gave you a good hearing. Dave Rubin, I think the point here, Dave, isn't it? It's just about the fact that there is a general belief, fueled by the Jake Tapper, Alex Thompson book that's coming out now, which many people look at them and say, well, you should have blown the whistle before. They kind of admit that. Both of them have admitted that, so I think credit to them for doing that. But what the book seems to reveal is what many of us said very publicly many times. Joe Biden was unfit to be president of the United States, cognitively, physically, any other way you care to strip it. That matters. And the reason the cancer story now matters is if it turns out that they knew he had prostate cancer, which was metastasized, we don't know when. And, you know, to your point, Vijaya, I'm very glad that your daughter's okay. And I understand sometimes cancer comes on very, very fast. But she is not the president of the United States. When you're president of the United States, Dave, you get incredible medical treatment and you get tested for just about everything all the time, precisely to ensure that you are fit and able to run the country. So I just cannot believe that a man who was president of the United States in his 70s did not have another PSA test after 2014 for one of the most prevalent cancers that affects elderly men. I just don't buy it. And if they're lying about it, then a lie was perpetrated on the American people, which is, I think, pretty serious.
Of course, of course. First off, Piers, I want to say it's good to see you. I know we've been hitting each other a little bit on Twitter lately, but it's always fun. It's always fun to be on the show. As long as we're doing medical diagnoses here, I mean, I think we just saw a prime example of a symptom of Trump derangement syndrome. When someone is asked a question about what's wrong with Joe Biden's cognitive ability and now his metastatic cancer, we start talking about Donald Trump. So that's one issue. As to everything else you said, Knowles absolutely hit it on the head. There is an unbelievable layer of conspiracies here, because either we are to believe that Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the 82-year-old president, former president of the United States, that his doctor was completely incompetent at every level, meaning he didn't catch what is now very, very advanced, very easy to catch prostate cancer. As you said, you're 60 years old. You've had these PSA tests. Yeah. I checked on Grok this morning. Grok recommends that men usually at about 45 years old. And that's what ChatGPT says as well. And you can talk to virtually any doctor that says that. Yeah. See, this is the kind of obfuscation that you guys do with everything. We all know that men somewhere in their 40s and 50s.
Followed up with white genocide?
We all know that men in their 40s and 50s should be getting this test annually. So either his doctor was completely negligent and hid that, but it's not just that, because he was also either completely negligent or a buffoon or a criminal when it came to what was going on with Joe Biden cognitively. Why is it, Piers? I'm not from the future. I don't have a DeLorean or a flux capacitor or anything else. Why is it that in 2019, I was doing videos, you can find them online, of Joe Biden's cognitive ability? It's because everyone could see it right in front of our face, and they told us not to see. So there's multiple layers of conspiracy here. And as it pertains to Jake Tapper, and Alex Thompson is the guy that I guess co-wrote the book, and the poor guy, he's going into all these interviews with Jake, and he's just like, ooh, I hope they don't ask me a question. It's embarrassing, because the scandal is not just that doctor, she's a doctor, right? Dr. Jill Biden, and the insiders were hiding this. And what did Biden even know what he had or anything else? The scandal is that the media ran in cahoots with the Democrat machine or the Biden machine or whatever you want to call it. So there's multiple layers of a medical scandal, because there's more than one issue there, but there's multiple layers of, I would say, a cultural scandal, which pertains to how the White House released information and how the media used that information or hid that information.
I agree.
David, were those the videos that Russia paid you to make, or was that your original independent thinking?
Okay, let me do this, because you do this every time I'm on the show. You do know that the Department of Justice closed the case, and you do know that I'm talking about it right now, so that has nothing to do with me. But
and I would add a third. I would add a third. Do you know? I don't give a fuck. So let's just move back to the debate. Destiny.
So you weren't paid by Russia? Okay.
Look, good to know. If you want to ask him on your own show and ask him those questions again and again and again, go and do it on your own show, would you? Let me bring in Destiny. Destiny.
Fair enough.
Destiny, I do think this matters. Do you?
I'm going to be honest. I haven't followed the news recently, and I lose track of this sometimes. Right now, who's the president? Is it Trump or is it Biden? Because every single day I turn the news on, Trump is talking about Biden, the conservatives are talking about Biden, everybody is talking about Biden. It feels like that is the only thing that these people can ever talk about, because they're trying to take away attention from Trump's disastrous econ policy,
there was a major
from the utter failures
Biden,
that he's
like
running into over and over and over again with all of the courts, with the insane arguments that they're putting in front of the Supreme Court, trying to get rid of things like birthright citizenship. But for some reason, we're talking about Biden again. Also, it's no surprise that conservatives are once again, there is no scandal. There is no evidence of any scandal whatsoever. It's just more conservatives demonstrating again that they know nothing about medicine.
There's no evidence of a scandal.
No, you don't need to explain anything. Well, I'm giving my answer to Pierre's question. You say the man wasn't competent to be president. I'm curious. Can you show me a single time when Joe Biden sat down and had EOs brought to him and explained to him that he'd never seen before, like we see Trump sign on an almost daily basis? One example of that.
Well, they didn't bring them to Joe Biden because an auto pen
You have no
did
examples of that. No, you have no examples of that. Donald Trump is worse. Donald Trump is worse. That's great, but you can see videos of Biden explaining what's in the Hold on, let me finish my answer. For all of these people that are so concerned about Biden's health, everybody got so offended when Elon Musk was asked about his ketamine abuse. So they said we had no right into the minds, the drug use, or the medical records of people that might be involved in major parts of the government, that he was involved in dismantling huge parts of the government. He was the president's right-hand man. Just right there, we just heard another pivot, another abdication of responsibility. The reality is conservatives know nothing about medicine. All of you guys on here are saying it's totally common to test for prostate cancer past 50. 70. It's not. Past 70 is not recommended. Believe it or not, and I know in the movies and in the TV shows, it seems like you can test for every single thing at every point in time. You can't test for every single thing at every point in time. You don't do that because you get a lot of false positives.
He's the president of the United States.
How long does that PSA test take you? When you do that PSA test annually,
it doesn't matter.
How long does that take you? Is that a big problem for the doctor?
It takes 3 minutes.
Over the age of 70, you do not test men for prostate cancer. It's just not recommended. You can't test for every single
disease. It is if you're the president of the United States and you've already had a test in 2014.
From ordinary human conditions? No, of course not. You can't test for every single disease at every single point of your life. Unfortunately, you just can't do that.
Okay, Michael, let me bring you back in here. I think, look, it's the conversation's been very revealing. With Jar Hat on massive distraction technique and Destiny basically saying old people shouldn't have tests that might save their lives.
Just to be clear, go to Google,
arguments.
look up, when do you test for prostate cancer? You don't test after 70. You can Google it right now. Put it on the program. Everybody can type it in the
PSA test literally takes 10 seconds.
Joe Biden, who now has metastatic
blood test.
Cancer in his bones? Are you arguing they shouldn't have tested him?
It's a blood test. I bet the President of the United States probably has a weekly blood test. Probably. I'm guessing.
What do you think a blood test is? Do you think you can test for every single possible thing in your blood?
It is so easy to test for PSA. Your PSA literally is one thing.
For it.